Okay. Hey, thanks everyone for joining. Today I'm super excited to have Cree back again, uh, and Fernando from Windsor-Essex County Health Unit. We've done a lot of work with Fernando in the for the past 3 or 4 years, and Cree, I think you're going to dive a little bit deeper into what kind of work we've done, but also the whole security aspect of it. But before we get started, Canada, South Africa. How do you feel about that? I wanted to put you on the spot. So Cree's from South
Whoa.
Africa, for those of you who don't know, right? So Canada, South Africa. So who are you repping?
It's one of those scenarios, Amol, where whoever wins, I win. So
Yeah.
I've got two dogs in the fight here, and and I'm going to draw a line down the center just purely for my safety and health.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean Sunday, that's gonna be an exciting day, man. It's gonna
I
be,
I
and I think
cannot
both
wait.
teams have a solid chance, which is a great part, great thing about this, right? So
Yeah, yeah. But I will say, and it's not purely because of where I'm sitting physically at the moment. I think Canada just has a bit of the edge, just in terms of their pattern
I
of
think
play
so.
and just a bit more finishing excellence.
Yeah,
So let's
I
see.
think
It's
so.
going to be a good
Yeah.
contest. I wasn't expecting that question. You put me on the spot.
Hey, I had to. All right, let's get
Fair enough.
started, Cree.
Well,
Yeah,
fantastic. It's always good to be here. I can't believe this is our third one and our last one. And
yeah,
hopefully, this isn't the end of our series and that we continue to have many more of
we
those.
should.
And critically, that the audiences that we're serving are deriving value out of this, and how CrucialLogics is actually delivering security for $0, right? So, zero trust for $0. Fernando, thank you for joining us today. And we're very excited to hear from you. There's nothing better than hearing from customers themselves and them relaying their lived experience. So tell us, what brought you to work with CrucialLogics? What was the driver in the business around looking at your security posture?
Well, interesting enough, I connected with CrucialLogics in a mall after we had conducted our first pen test coming out of the pandemic a while back, of course. And we had finished the penetration testing in our environment, and I said, "Well, thanks for bringing all of this report to me. There seems to be some work that we have to do here to you know get better to strengthen our security profile." And I asked a very plain question. I said, "Who can help me?" And thankfully, the first words that came out of their mouth was "Crucial Logics. We'll put you in touch." And so I had a meeting with them all where we kind of just, you know, discussed the report that I had, and I said, "Is this something that you guys can help us with?" And that's really where the connection started.
Uh, just coming off mute there. But that's awesome, and that's how some of the best relationships are actually formed, right? With these
Definitely.
introductions, and I'm glad that you're here with us today because it's testament to the relationship that's been built over time, and critically the type of value that they provided to you and your business. Um, Tell me about the security work that was undertaken at your environment. Where did it lead to, and critically, around the tenant hardening and the pieces that surrounded that solution that ended up being delivered for you and the business.
Certainly. Yeah, I'll start by saying, I have a small team here. We support 300 staff. We have two sites. People are working from home, and the idea of kind of attacking the Microsoft security uh, on our own just wasn't realistic, and so we really needed to lean on Crucial to help us get through that because with a small team you only have so much capacity and so much in-house experience. So to properly roll out Microsoft security, we needed the experts. It was a big concern for me. I didn't want to go down this road. um, there's so much risk around misconfiguration. There's so much risk around not really knowing how to get the best practice from that standpoint done. And so we really leaned on Crucial to help us with the Microsoft security ecosystem, because that's what it is. It's not just one tool. There's Intune, there's DLP, there's Entra, and ID management, and there's a lot, and it can be daunting. And on top of that, you have Microsoft licensing, which can be daunting, and you don't want to go down the road of, do I need this many licenses, and what kind of license do I need? If you're not bundling it all in E5, everything's a separate SKU with Microsoft, as many of you know. And so, that was scary for me. So I was sitting there going, man, I need help. And so the Crucial Logic team really helped me through every piece of those questions that I had around, you know, what am I going to expect to spend? What's the right licensing model to approach this? How are we going to attack this? When you look at it from, far away, there's so much work to do. But where I think Crucial really helped us is we bit off small chunks of this project, and they really helped plan it out. So we went through um, a lot of phases to kind of get to where we needed to be, and that's why I needed a partner, and Crucial was the right choice for us.
Something interesting, Cree, that Fern said there. He mentioned E5, and there is this whole, I would say, misnomer that for you to get security, you need E5. Yes, you do in the enterprise world, but when you're 300 users or less, which is SMB, business premium SKU is lesser known, and I kind of look at business premium as E5 Lite in my opinion.
And that's what we have.
Everything that E5 has and gives you everything that E5 gives you, other than, let's say, Entra IDP2, right? Which has its own, benefits or whatnot. But for a small business, you can actually establish zero trust using just the business premium SKU, which is huge, right? Because, I think, Fern, when you and I first started talking, your main concern was E5 was like $80 Canadian, right? Or 84, I don't know what it is, right?
Yeah. It was out of reach for us.
It's out of reach for a lot of, and people don't know that for $31 you get business premium, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that was big for us. And I think we do have one E5 license, but it's for the logging and for other things. But yes, yeah, that's right.
You mentioned such an important point there, both Yufa and Amal. The Microsoft licensing, I was pretty shocked, Fernando, that you said that it's complex. I mean, it's one of the easiest things for us to understand.
You need a PhD.
If you have a degree in it, maybe.
Yeah,
I do. Right?
I'm making light of it because even for us internally, it is complex. Like there are so many different computations that you can go with, and often for customers, they end up looking at this and they're like, okay, this is too complex for us. What's the biggest and the best? Because surely that's going to get me the type of security that I need. So leaning into Amal's point, then people think, okay, E5, and right now it's E7. They're like, that's the big shiny one. That's what we should go for, and we'll figure it out. But there's so much that's wrapped in there. And for our SMBs, 300 seats and below, Business Premium is a fantastic offering at an amazing price point with a ton of capabilities that are in there. And that's exactly the route that you went on. But it also involves having a partner that's knowledgeable, not just in terms of the technology stack, but also in terms of the complexity that comes with Microsoft, so that they can mix and match the right combination based on the business needs and the user profiles to ensure that you're secure in that environment. Amal, I'm going to flip it over to you for a second, because I'm given to understand that the very offer that we're talking about today, which is Zero Trust for $0, was actually or the actual blueprint from that came out of this actual implementation here with Fernando and his team. Don't you want to talk us through that and the learnings that you went through, and how that gave rise or gave birth to what we now have and are bringing to market?
Yeah, so I mean, we've been doing tenant hardening, Intune deployment, and Defender deployment for past 7.5 years, right? We've been selling Microsoft security before Microsoft realized that they were a security company, right? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that, because when we started in 2018, Microsoft wasn't pitching themselves as Microsoft Security. I don't even think that department really existed as a separate, pillar within Microsoft. And you look at Intune, I look at Intune as a security product, right? I don't look at Intune as an MDM. It's really a security product. And when we received Fernando's pen test report and we looked through it, we are like, we can solve all this using our three workloads that we had, which is tenant hardening, Intune, and Defender deployment, right? The biggest and I would say the biggest blocker for organizations of Fernando's size always has been the upfront investment, right? So yes, you have business premium license, but we talked about last week with Carolyn and that how business premium, although you have a license, things aren't turned on automatically, right? So getting them configured would cost our clients $30,000-$40,000 depending on the size per workload.
Mhm.
So now you have to shell out $120,000 up front to actually get to a security posture. So Fernando and many other organizations that actually took that leap of faith with us, but they had to take it. In Fernando's case, we had to do it over 2.5 years. So budgets had to be approved and things like that, because these are big chunks for organizations to swallow. So last year I challenged my team and I said, we need to make this efficient. And from an economical perspective, but not just economical, I want to make it $0. So figure this out. So what our team did was, our team came up with this whole concept called Crucial Config, where we now have a centralized tenant which holds all the policies, and then we connect using graph APIs and things like that. We connect all these tenants to that centralized tenant, which is highly secure, like DoD style, and then we push down Intune policies, Defender policies, tenant hardening policies. Literally, I want to call it touch of a button. Rather than 3 months per workload, now we can get the workload out in a week and a half, right? Because the policy building is rinse and repeat. And not only do we do that, but when the client becomes our managed service client, so we do it for $0 now, and then the client becomes our managed service client. When that client becomes our managed service client, we actually hold that tenant into compliance according to what we build. So if someone goes in and changes the value, our crucial config tenant says, hey, sorry, that's not allowed. I'm going to put you back to where you were, right? So now it holds it into compliance. So there is no configuration drift, so to speak, right? And now we can say, what we build, we can build it efficiently. And rather than waiting 2.5 years, Fern, we can actually get you up and running, or get clients like you up and running in less than a month, fully
That's
secure.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
that's why we termed it zero trust for $0, right? So
I want to kind of add to what you just said. So you're right. I think the biggest, hurdle for me originally was getting a budget approval, because it's hard to, you know, explain why we need to do this, and with the price tag and everything. The upfront costs could seem like a lot, and when I say, well, this is a 3-month project, we got a lot of work to do. There's discovery work, there's the implementation, there's the testing. There's a lot of things that are involved with doing something of this nature, but hearing that you have it templated now, I mean, it just makes good sense.
yeah,
One more thing I'll add is around the business premium license, Cree, that we were talking about. Um, we were able, with Amal's guidance, to say, you know what, you're using Bitdefender, you can use Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Oh, okay. So that cost is now off the table for us. We're not paying for Bitdefender. It's rolled into our business premium license that we're already paying for. Oh, you guys are using AirWatch for Endpoint, MDM. You won't need that. You're going to have Intune. Oh, yeah, that's another one we can just say, okay, we don't need that cost anymore. We're going to use Intune for MDM. So, it was kind of an aha moment when we started realizing that we're paying for business premium. It has all these wonderful tools that we can start leveraging to take care of things that we're paying for outside of business premium. So that really helped kind of, when I was trying to convince my boss to say, this is good value. We have to go through this. Yeah, there was some upfront costs, but there were long-term savings for us in the end.
And maybe Fern, you can tell them the story of what happened when you tried to run the pen test again,
Oh yeah,
right?
they first of all, the follow-up pen test after we had Defender up, they basically a couple things happened. They knew already that when we had Defender, it was going to be a lot more work for the guys on the pen test side to get around, so that we had to disable certain things. On top of that, I got a call from one of Amal's team at Crucial saying, "Hey," and I didn't tell them that this pen test was happening. This was last December. Um, I get a call from one of Amal's team, and they said, "We've isolated an endpoint here. There's some really strange activity happening. Can you just have a look at this with us?" And so when I looked at it, it happened to be related to the pen test, and they had shut that part of it down. And I didn't, you know, I wasn't expecting that call. I certainly didn't know that this was something that Amal's team was doing for us. And Amal didn't even know that was something Amal's team was doing for us. So
Well,
that was kind of
it
funny.
wasn't it wasn't my team that was doing. It was actually what happened was that
Oh,
Defender did send us an alert, and Defender actually automatically acted on it, right?
yes, that's
So
what
so
happened.
when we do these deployments, we have signals coming back to us, right, saying if
Okay.
there is a change. So there was a signal that was coming back to us saying this endpoint has detected malicious activity. It was a pen
Mhm.
tester that was on it. So not only did it actually isolate the endpoint, but it also blocked the pen tester's account. So then
Yes,
the
that's
pen
right.
tester calling Fern as well, saying, "Oh, you
We
know,
can't do any work.
we can't do any work." So I mean, that's how effective this whole thing is, where without anybody really getting involved, it already took actions and notified the right people. And we just happened to pick up that signal because it was just after the project, and we still were receiving alerts from Defender at that point. So
That's
it
right.
is super effective. Like,
Amazingly
I
effective.
mentioned a story in the last webinar as well, but there are so many stories that just show like this thing just works, right? Like this whole
Definitely.
thing just works, right? But also, I think it's helped you take the next steps in many other areas like AI governance, right? Like, now
Absolutely.
your
We
adoption
have
of
all the
AI,
pieces.
because we have the baseline security, is so much easier than what it would be 3 years ago, where you're like, I have no idea where my data is, or I have no
Absolutely.
no controls over my data, right?
Right. Now it's just a matter of like, configuring Purview the correct way and doing what
Yeah.
we need to do there. But, all the hurdles that were before that, we've kind of jumped over already with you
Yeah.
guys. And, we've done, I want to say 3 really big projects, but we've done a lot of projects with you guys. And, so I kind of know how to get to the end with you guys now. So
Yeah.
it's been good.
Yeah.
You're in a fortunate situation because the vast majority of customers, when I engage with them, the appetite and the willingness and the agency to move forward with agentive solutions is absolutely there. However, th- that very quickly gets tempered with the reality that, number one, their data estate is not necessarily in the best shape, and
Yeah.
critically, more importantly than that, that their security posture is not in shape, and that completely stymies everything and
Right.
just grinds it
Of
down.
course.
Um, the good news here, if I just walk back into something that Amal had shared, was an activity that would typically take around 3 months. With this approach, is now just over a week and a bit long. So
Yep.
the
That's
cost
what
comes down, the acceleration comes into place, and you've got this overarching entity being CrucialLogics that is constantly monitoring and evaluating the policies that are being deployed within an environment. So that entire overhead goes away from the operational small lean team that you mentioned, Fernando, that
Mhm.
many of our SMBs are faced with. Some of them have no IT team, barring one or two people.
Yeah.
So values there, the cost model is fantastic, and you've got a trusted partner, and it walks you towards an agented future
Yeah.
securely.
I think I should say you're welcome to everybody on the call here because
Yeah.
I went through the hard work of getting it, polished up for you guys. But no, really, it was worth all of that effort, even going the hard way for us. We learned a lot in that process anyway. So I'm still good with the way we ended up at the finish line.
And when we were doing it, there wasn't an easy way. And Microsoft released a few things that actually enabled us to make it easier for our clients, right? Like the graph APIs and things like that we could now hook into. And the advent of AI actually tremendously helped us accelerate that project as well. So and at this point, really, if you look at it, when you're talking about zero trust, you now have an actual zero trust environment where it doesn't matter where your endpoint travels to, your
Mhm.
endpoint is always protected, right? Because right now it's all about endpoints. The perimeter is kind of there, but not really, because people are working from all over
That's
at
right.
this point, right? So yeah.
I've got a question for you, Fernando, which is, now that all of that heavy lift has been done, and thank you for that, because all of these customers are becoming downstream beneficiaries of the hard yards that you walked with Amal and his team. So thank you for being bleeding edge on that. But outside of that, now that your environment's set up, now that this is all in place, and you can go to bed like easy at night.
Mhm.
What does day
Certainly.
to day look like in terms of engagement with Amal's team? Um, what's the frequency of engagement? What type of analytics do they share back with you? Has it been a good experience, and what are the standout moments for you?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So we do have monthly meetings with the Malls team. We do a review, and we're looking at so many things. In fact, we're adding more to this monthly review that we do. It's an operational review where we're looking at we look at everything from our licensing and its utilization, which is very helpful for us because sometimes we have, you know, unused licenses, and we have to ask the question and reflect, oh, what happened here? Can we get more efficient with this usage or that usage for the many products that we use with Microsoft? But also, we also look at things like device compliance. Every month we say, here's the number it was last month, here's the number it is this month. Is there a reason it increased or decreased? But what it does is it prompts my team to put in that day-to-day work around finding that endpoint that doesn't have the latest Chrome update, or finding that endpoint that needs 25H2 updates. So really, it's maintenance now, more or less. We're not worried about, oh my gosh, how far out of compliance are we? We know that actually all the time now. We know what patches need to get deployed on every endpoint. So for me, it's knowing now, whereas before it was not knowing, and that's what really did cause my stress. When you say sleepless nights, that's a thing in the IT world, 100%. We're scared of breaches. We're scared of cyber incidents. We're scared of untrained users doing crazy things that they should know better. So this gives you peace of mind. It really does. It makes me know, you know what, guys, we only have 9 Windows endpoints out of 300 that are not compliant. And you know what? They're only non-compliant because they need this one little patch or that little patch. So it's really given me a lens to understanding identity on my network, all the endpoints on my network, and what it's going to take to get us. It's almost like a game now. We want to get the best possible score for compliance, and it really is. Like, my team's really
And low
engaged with
exposure
it.
score and high security score. Yeah,
You
that's it,
got it.
right? Yeah,
You got it. Yes, exactly.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
we're all engaged. My
yeah.
team is a part of those calls every month, and we challenge ourselves to improve those metrics every month.
The the other key part is, let's just talk from a security perspective. Just because you have Defender doesn't mean that Defender is doing its job, right? Unless you
Of
actually
course.
keep an eye on. Defender gives you enough data to say these are the endpoints that are onboarded, these are the
Mhm.
endpoints that you can onboard, and for some reason you haven't. So that did not report data. Like, what reported is great, but what did not report is actually more important, because you need
Good
to go
point.
back and see why it did not
Right.
report, and let's figure out why it didn't, because that's where your exposure is. So let's go get that exposure fixed, right? And that simple report that we do for all our clients, many CIOs actually use it as part of their board presentation to show the security trend within the organization. One of the things actually that we also do is we showcase how many spams did you receive month after month? And we see a trend, right? Like, last month you
Right.
received 2,000, month before you only received 1,000, but now it's 5. What happened? Did you guys launch a marketing event? And that marketing event, and then we can correlate that back and say, yeah, if you launched a marketing event, then you were out in the news a lot more. So maybe you got targeted more, right? So all those trends are extremely important. And the crazy part, Cree, is they're all available on the Microsoft dashboard. Nobody looks at it. So our job is to make it front and center, right? It's not rocket science. We're not inventing something, and this is not patented technology. It's just having your clients, safety in mind, and giving them the information so that they can make the right decision, which is already available. That's the key part. It's already available on the Microsoft security portals, right? We just need to bring it in. That's
The
it.
trick is, Amal, your team makes it intentional for us to think
Yes.
about it and for us to
Yeah.
look at it.
Yes.
And like the IT world's busy.
Yeah.
A month goes by very quickly when you're sometimes putting out all these little fires. So, we lose sight of those important metrics, but having a monthly meeting with your team, it puts that intentionally in front of me and my team to say, hey guys, we're moving, the needle's moving the wrong way for non-compliance. You better get on it. So I think that's the big difference too.
The piece here is that there's so much that's jam packed into these technologies, and there's a fundamental difference between experiencing something as a tourist and experiencing something as a citizen,
Right.
because CrucialLogics, being a citizen within there, are able to unlock all of these things that, to some of what you shared, Fernando, and many of our customers, I see this happening to them. They don't know what they don't know, and then they go out and they buy these solutions that are additive, but in many ways they're serving the same purpose for something that you've just got already. So it's
Right.
critically important that you've got the right partner that takes that heavy lift away from you, because that is not the core of your business. So
Right.
you can focus, and you and your teams can focus on what you're great at doing, and our partners like CrucialLogics can focus on the things that they're great at doing. We're drawing to an end here. Final question that I've got for you: there are many SMBs that are probably listening to this and see a reflection of themselves in exactly this. What advice would you give them if they want to start on their security journey?
I think the best advice I can give is don't be afraid to ask for help. There's so much to learn, and there's so much we need to know about in the world of IT. And it's every day changing. With AI especially, there's so many new tools, so many new technologies that are out there. Ask for help. Find the help you need. You know, don't think you have to do everything on your own. Um, I certainly felt more confident at the end of the projects that I've worked on with Amal and his team, um, because I've learned a lot more, and I know that it was done right because they've seen this 1,000 times and I've seen it once. So I think that's the best advice I can give. Get the help you need.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you, Amal. Thank you, Fernando.
Thank
And
you.
this has been a great 3-part series.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank
Take
you
care, everyone.
for thank you everyone for joining. Cree, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thank
And
you.
Fern, as always, thanks for all the support and partnership.
Likewise, my
All
pleasure.
right. Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Okay. Bye, guys.